You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 167 of the Last Breath Huntcast. The voice you're hearing right now is Grant Putnam, and right across from me is Garrett.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are going to do a recap of the buck that I shot last weekend that I call Mr. Beem. So it was actually kind of an interesting hunt. First morning, hunting the farm that I purchased back in February. We call it the Max 60, about a 60-acre chunk of ground down kind of near McDonough County, and we're going to go ahead and break that down today. But before we do, we're going to go ahead and get into the partners that we have, starting off with Badlands Gear. That is the title sponsor of our podcast here, so thank you for them for sticking with us for yet another year as the title sponsor of our podcast, using the code
Last Breath 22BL30. Get you 30% off at the discount code section. When you add that into your cart, something to note, we've had some guys go, hey, it's not working. It only works on normal price items. When they have their closeouts and their clearances, I wish we could double down because, trust me, we'd be doing the same. But no, that's just normal priced items. Something to look at that they just launched is their new Celine jacket, pants, or bibs. It's kind of like that perfect in-between like the pyre and the rides with the color suit. Incredibly quiet. Be careful around burrs and stick tights. They'll be your worst enemy, but it's a happy medium. It's kind of designed for right now in that middle November, early December, where you don't want to be cooking with the pyre, but you don't want to be cold or have to layer crazy heavy. It's that right in the middle sweet spot.
Yep, and also, if you get yourself a buck that you think is worthy of the wall this year, please go ahead and reach out to Wayne and Michael over at Tompkins Taxidermy in Muscatine, Iowa. Phenomenal customer service, phenomenal quality, and phenomenal turnaround time. So that's pretty much it, and we can go ahead and get right into the episode. So October as a whole, we were hot on Megatron's trail for about the first 6, 7, 8 days of October, and hunted him a few times there when we had a wind that we thought we could get away with hunting him. Haven't laid eyes on him yet. The last time we laid eyes on him would have been the last day of bow season of 2021 when you and I saw him from about 90 yards away. And before then, I saw him on the antlerless only muzzleloader season weekend. Would have been a couple weeks before the end of the Illinois archery season in our home state last year. So he lived, dropped his fours, big 8-pointer now. And we've been trying to play cat and mouse with that deer, and we haven't caught up to him yet. As of late, he's been a little on the cold side on our cameras, which is kind of to be expected as we approach November here, because we're recording this on the 5th of November. So as we all know, starting about the 28th, 29th of October, bucks are going to start stretching their legs a little bit, expanding that core area in which they're living in. And so hopefully we can catch up with that deer here pretty soon. We're still continuing to monitor, and that would be the number one deer that we're after. So hopefully we can get a run in with him.
I would just say he's been the most difficult deer for us to hunt because he's not
because of his temperament.
He's not a typical mature deer. Like, we can't confirm this with interactions, with barring one that we tried to get hyper aggressive with him, which was the last day of bow season. I threw out a Hail Mary snort wheeze just to see if I could get him to turn. That time of year, it's a gamble anyway, but he was heading to the beans. And, just in every single camera image we have of him, he's not tussying with other deer. Like even in early October, he wasn't even tickling the tines. Yep. Like we have videos of him coming up to the scrapes, and he'll just lightly sniff the licking branches. Like he never paws them. He never thrashes them with his rack. And it just, to me, he's a big bodied deer. He's a big framey deer. Like he's the epitome of what you would say is like, man, he's a toad. But when it comes to his temperament, he is just like happy-go-lucky, a lover, not a fighter.
We actually have a image sequence of him where he is quite literally bedded down in one of our food plots, like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as two deer are tussling, and he just continues to lay there.
Care.
He does not care.
Yep. And so, like, for us, the way that we typically, we talk about the bubble and we talk about trying to get into a deer's mind with the way that we use scrapes. That is
with a decoy
not working with this guy. I think a decoy would be
worse,
counterproductive. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe he just found a lady and they went gallivanting to elope somewhere for the rut.
Mm-hmm.
But, you would think that his instincts would eventually take over. He'd want to run. He'd want to breed, but who knows, man?
Mm-hmm.
So last documented sighting of that deer was on the 26th, and we'll see how this story ends. But right now we got to talk about a different deer story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got to feel pretty damn good.
Does feel good.
Kill a deer on dirt that is your own. I mean, something I can't say that I've ever done, and most of our friends can't say they've ever done. I mean, so talk us through the hunt for him. I mean, obviously, was he a deer you were targeting going in?
So I was telling Matt and Jesse this when we were down there because this piece of property is about 12, 15 minutes from Matt's house. So I stay the night down there with Matt typically when I hunt down there. And so what happened was I have a lot of deer that I got in velvet, 3 bucks of which are big, big, big. When I say big, 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 I say an 8-pointer over 150 and a 10-pointer over 160. That's kind of what is in my wheelhouse of calling big. So there's a third 8-pointer that Matt actually believes he knows, and he thinks that he has he knows the guy that found the sheds off of him. So he's aware of the deer that I thought this deer was. And so this deer comes in at about 7:15, and a little bit of backstory about why I chose to hunt there. So on last Saturday night, I sat overlooking a picked cornfield, and I saw about 20 deer. And there was a really nice 10-pointer, the one that is probably the biggest antlered deer that lives out there, and I tried rattling at him, but he just wouldn't commit. I don't know if he couldn't hear me, and that would have been on October 28th, again, last Saturday evening. Saw about 20 deer, a lot of them out in the field, and tried calling to him. He picked his head up. It looked like he may have heard me, but he didn't come in, and it didn't commit. And I saw a few other nice bucks that night as well. In the following morning, we were going to be having a northerly wind, but I knew with the temperature drop, just because it was going to be sunrise, I could go into a bottom and use thermals and be undetected, and that's exactly what I did. You and me talked about it often. Typically, when there's like a nice crisp morning that's coming, you can get away with hunting in a bottom. I know wind gets swirly in bottoms and things like that, but you can get away with hunting it till about 8 o'clock, 8:30, pre-time change if the temperature drop is enough to the thermals to bring the thermals into play in your advantage. So that's what I did. Went into a bottom kind of at a pinch point where the creek kind of bends, overlooking a clearing. And so the sunrise would have been at about 7 o'clock, right on the button last Saturday. And so I shot this deer a little bit before 7:20. So it was about 20 minutes in, so I could start to see the light and everything like that. I hear crunching coming through the woods, and I'm like, okay, this deer's getting pretty close, whatever it is. I can see it now. Steps out into the clearing, and I can hear it making a scrape. I can see it pawing the ground. I can hear it thrashing the licking branch. I put my binoculars up, and so the way that this deer sits on his head, so I got about 10 bucks over the course of the summer on trail camera, all in velvet down there. And the way that this deer sits on his head, his rack almost goes like straight up. Like you and I have talked about this before. Neither of us kind of have killed a deer before that right as soon as it gets off of its pedicle, they just go straight up to the moon. Kind of like a deer, like if you guys have watched the episode with Fade, the deer that Matt and Jesse killed. Garrett and I haven't killed a deer kind of like that before, so that's a very similar deer. It's not as big as Fade, not at all, but this deer kind of goes straight up off his head, and the right side of the big old 8-pointer kind of goes straight and right up off his head as well. So I'm looking at this deer. I put my binoculars up, and I can see like that side, so I'm looking at him from His butt is west, his head is east. So I can see his head and his right side antler beam in the licking branch. And I'm seeing that he's thrashing around. I'm like, okay, this deer's not like, it doesn't look to be like a 1 or 2 year old. I'm not exactly sure how old Mr. Beem is, but he's got like a nice sagged belly, and I could see like, all right, this deer probably is pushing over 260-ish pounds. Like, it seems, like I said, it's the first time I've hunted there, first year owning it, so I don't have a great idea. I have a guess as to how old all the deer are down there, but I'm thinking that this deer is like a 3, 4, or 5 year old. And so I think it's this older 8-pointer that I have, because his right side only goes straight up, kind of like what I was talking about. His left side not so much. It kind of has a standard halo. And so I'm thinking that that's the deer. So I draw back, and right before I drew back, I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot this deer. And getting pretty excited, and he is still working the licking branch. And the gap that he's in, his head is at about 21 yards, and the furthest shot in the gap that I have is 28. So I range the middle of the gap. I roll my pin to 24. And, sure enough, he kind of whirls around. He abandons the licking branch, and he opens away from me. And when I mean open away from me, he was nearly perfectly broadside, with his head facing the east and with his butt facing the west. And he opened so that his head was facing the north now. So now he's quartering away from me, walking away from me. And he takes like 2 steps. And about as soon as he opens up, because I'm sitting there with the GoPro on, filming him and everything like that, getting ready to draw. As soon as he opens his left foot to walk away, I draw. And after his first step, I'm like, okay, he's moving pretty slow, but I do want to stop him. Like, a 20-ish, mid-20s yard shot is not a far shot, but it's a shot in which I don't want a moving deer. And so I draw back. I try to stop him. Once he continues to walk, I go a little louder. He stops right in the middle of the gap, so I'm pretty sure it was right at 24 yards.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I settle in right behind the shoulder, shoot him. And, you'll be able to see on the video that the arrow, I get a nice pass through. I hear the sound of punching a pumpkin like we've talked about on here before. And it goes in mid-body up, down, I don't know, right behind the shoulder, 3 inches behind the shoulder. So for all intents and purposes, he wasn't very steeply quartered away. He was probably a 30-degree away quarter. So a really nice situation for it to go into the middle of his lungs and the front of the exit side of the lungs.
Right.
And so that's exactly what happened. So I shoot, he mule kicks, he runs off, and after about 8 seconds of him running and crashing,
Did you hear him crash and tumble
yep,
and break?
I heard him crash, and then I heard his air quote last breath. I heard the sound of I heard the sound of his skin flapping against his
gurgling.
Yeah, gurgling and flapping against his rib cage. Just as a result of the extra holes. So I hit him about, like I said, 3-4 inches behind the shoulder on the onside. So I was kind of aiming for that.
Perfect.
I was aiming for that backside shoulder.
He didn't duck very much, did he? When you
No,
shot?
he didn't. No, he didn't duck. He pretty much took the arrow. So, so it went in mid-lung on the entrance side. It exited front lung on the exit side and exited out kind of right at the point of the shoulder. So it kind of pretty much smoked through the goods. I hear him walk. I hear him run away, take his last breath. I'm like, oh crap, it's over. He's dead. He's dead right there. And so there was a rainstorm that was coming in at about 10 o'clock. It started getting really, really rainy. And so, like I said, this is about 7:20 in the morning, and I can hear that this deer's dead. And I can hear that he's crashed and everything like that. So I wait for about 15 minutes. Call you, call Matt, call Jesse, call Michaela, call my dad, and then I go and I'm like, okay, I can see the blood trail. Looks like a nice blood trail.
Yeah, he didn't go very far, did he? 60 yards, 70 yards?
I don't even think it was 60. It was probably more like 40 yards.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, where you hit him just through the goods, and that was with the kill zone, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was with the kill zone. And so he went about 40 yards before he fell down and took a bath in his own blood there and kicked around for a minute, and that was pretty much it. And so then I get down. The blood trail's awesome. I can see that it's coming out both sides, which I would have expected because I could, replay the video enough to know that all right, it's got a really good pass through here. I can see my lighted knock disappear and go right through them and everything like that. And I'm noticing, obviously we got 2 holes out both sides. One's nice and low, the other's right in the mid lung. So it's like one of those very easy blood trails to follow. There wasn't like any tomfoolery with like a broadhead ferrule breaking off or an arrow breaking off in the backside shoulder. It was pretty easy to follow, especially when you get that one side that's really low. So that side just
That's like the best feeling. Like when you smoke a deer and like you get down, you find your arrow, it's covered in blood, and then you just like look and you just see.
And you see the blood trail the whole way without even, having to bend over. When you start having to take knees and having a buddy stand at last blood and
that gets dicey.
And look at the pin drop and blah 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 and XYZ that everybody's all done probably at some point in their career out there. That starts getting a little disheartening, but it's it's part of the game, I guess. But this was one of the easier blood trails that I've ever followed. So he went about 40 yards, kicked over and died, and tagged him up, drug him back to that clearing. Matt drove his truck kind of down the hill, so I was sitting in a bottom, but it's kind of not a standard ditch bottom. So where I was, it's kind of north of me. It flattens out, and it's almost where 3 fingers converge. So the north side of the draw is not like vertical and like super steep like the trench. The south side's fairly steep. It's not as steep as the trench, but it's more gradual. But the north side's pretty flat, so the wind is a little bit more consistent down there, just because it's not jackknifing. Yeah. Whenever you sit in a jackknife bottom, and what I mean by that is like you're sitting in ag country, you've got like a hill that you have to, put your hands on trees to slow your descent down on a muddy day, otherwise you'll fall. That's what I call like a jackknife bottom. But this is not the case. It's pretty gradual on the south side going down. On the north side, it goes kind of flat. And my thermals were rising up pretty much all morning. So there was a point I wanted to share about access. So the way I accessed this stand, there's a massive amount of agricultural ground to the south of this property, and there is also to the north, but the north is unpicked. And when I parked my truck in on the south side, I probably saw 30 deer in the field, maybe, as you're swinging in and making your turn to park your truck. You can see all the eyeballs looking at you and everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go nice out and around because I'm not going to bump all the deer out of this field. And so I did that, and I feel like that aided to what I did as well, and the thermals were working to my advantage. And it wasn't super duper windy that morning. As I mentioned, I could hear his footsteps.
No, it was dead quiet. I remember.
It was super duper quiet. So my thermals were working for me really well, and I went clear out and around for my access because I didn't want to blow all the deer out of that field and everything. So it took a little longer to walk in there, but I was nice and early as it was. So that was pretty standard. So found the deer, got him all taken care of, gutted him up, and since I'm living and all my hunting stuff is in like 3 or 4 different spots this year, and the person that I'm living with has a very small deep freeze that him and his wife also share, I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I got to take this deer into the locker for the first time. So I was telling you the other day, this is the first deer that you and I haven't cleaned for 15 years because I'm like...
I don't think... Have you ever even taken a deer to a locker?
I've never personally taken one to the locker. I think we took like 2 to the Woodhull locker like right at the beginning when you were like 15 or 16. But I've never taken a deer to the locker. So that was the
first deer cleaning table we had carpet on it.
Yeah,
it was like
that got nasty.
That was from a workbench from Jelinski's gun store that they were going to burn it. I was like, I'll take it, and I took that thing all the way from Wisconsin to Illinois. Remember, I had a sink that we'd hook a garden hose up to. Yeah,
that worked good. So that was kind of a strange feeling. I kind of was like, well, that's it. Now I'm done. All I had to do was field dress the deer, and I
got it nice.
Oh, that's pretty nice. And so he's going to be jalapeno cheddar snack sticks. So, gonna have a lot of those hanging around.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty much the story. Pretty standard hunt.
You didn't even get to rattle those so early.
Yeah, it was really early. I was totally planning on rattling just because I knew my thermal was going to be working. I knew it was going to be really quiet and things like that. And I know that there's bucks around there, all in and out of there pretty frequently, just because this spot that I went is kind of sandwiched in between 2 really thick buckthorn bedding areas, like where it's just super thick. You can't see like 10 yards in front of you. And so There's ag out to the south. There's ag to the north. To the west, there's a 300 or 400 acre sanctuary, and to the east, there's like a 600 or 700 acre sanctuary. So there's a lot of deer down there. It's a definitely a high deer density area, I would call it. And so I knew it was kind of a matter of time if I just parked myself in the middle of that ditch for a while that I would eventually see a buck I'd want to kill. So when I walked up on him, I was totally expecting it to be that 8-pointer, but then I immediately knew. I was like, oh, it's Mr. Beem, okay. And so it's I don't know. I'm not an expert at aging deer, and I am very excited to send his tooth in.
Did you take his two front teeth out?
So his head is down at the Bushnell locker. Matt has it in his fridge right now.
Sure,
but I'm gonna take it out.
Yeah,
there's the bottom.
Yep.
And so I'm gonna take I'm gonna take those out. Probably give the cape to Wayne. I'll probably just European mount this deer because I've been telling my wife a lot lately. If I keep mounting deer, we're not gonna have any wall space by the time I'm 60 or 70
Such a
years
terrible
old.
problem to have.
I know.
But like you've seen like those guys that have like those iconic crazy walls where they have literally like
50 or 60 deer.
Deer heads, right?
Yeah, and if you're going at the pace of you and me, I would call we'd probably kill a buck and a half. I would say like on an average year we kill a buck, and on a great year we kill 2 bucks. And if you extrapolate that from the age of 20 to the age of 70, even with a gun, I'll probably slow down. I'll probably be pulling a crossbow back or a light poundage bow by the time I'm 70.
And then you have to sprinkle in there too, like our wives kill deer.
Yeah, that too.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shoot, Michaela's got how many deer on the wall?
3. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yep.
Right
3.
there. Logan's got 2.
Yeah. And so it's So I'm going to European mount this one, give Wayno the cape. So hopefully if you shot a deer and you got a snafu with maybe the coyotes got him, or maybe you had to leave him a little too long and the cape's nasty, then you can take advantage of having this one. So if you can listen to this before you get before I take it to Wayne, which you probably got a week or 2 to do that, then let me know. I may make the contingency of you getting the cape having to bring it to Wayne though. So
Ooh,
double dip.
But that's a pretty dang good deal in my book. I mean, super crazy fast turnaround. Use our code. You're guaranteed to get it back by July of next year. I mean, pretty dang awesome. But so do you have any other pictures of them?
I've got a ton of pictures of him, ton of videos of him.
Well, I'm saying, did Matt and Jesse take photos of you with him?
Yeah, they're all kind of blurry though. My phone's kind of a piece of crap, and so Matt took a bunch of pictures of me, but they're all like blurry.
They didn't even bring their camera?
Their camera's in the shop.
Oh.
So I have a couple cell phone pics of him. I have that one that I sent to you when he's like dead at my feet.
Right.
All the other ones Matt has, and he sent. So my PTA president, she sent me a bunch of stuff for like one of the fundraisers that we did recently at my school, and she sent me like 8 pictures, and she has an iPhone, and so does Matt. And they both sent him in like a big group, and both of them, I don't know why, but they're all pixelated. And I know that they both have like new iPhones. It's not like a junky camera or anything like that. I think it's my phone that's probably the problem. But let me see here. But yeah, I have some pictures. I'll have Matt send me another sequence of
those
images
teeth that you take out. They're the 2 front bottom incisors, and like I had a great experience with deerage.com.
And
but
so
you can
that's
buy
kind of
that
what he
kit.
looks like. He just kind of goes like straight up, whoop-de-loop.
Yeah, seriously, just
literally straight up.
It's his main beam. It's almost to the point like when you hold his head up, like his G2s point like
backwards. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so
it's weird that they're all blurry.
It is weird. They're all blurry. So I'm gonna have Matt send me another picture, but yeah, that's kind of what he looked like when I found him.
And you can't even tell that like he's that high up. Because you know what I mean, but when you're holding him, you can tell.
Yep. Yeah. So
because it's not,
he just goes like
his main beams. Yeah, like normally a main beam like halos in front, and his main beams like go up.
Yeah. So I'm anticipating. I'm not sure. I'm anticipating maybe this deer's really old. I'm guessing he's 3 or 4 though. So I'll be interested to see what the teeth come back as. And I got all of it on video. So pretty much at about 7:15 to 18 is when he was in there making a scrape, and that's about when I shot him. And then it was pretty standard. So I got about 10 video clips of him, enough for something like a shorter episode, just because it's real quick. I don't have any history with them, but I got a lot of trail camera pictures of them over the summer in velvet. And
that's also a thing that's cool. Like,
that's kind of cool, yeah.
TJ was the first year that we've ever had velvet pictures of that either of us had harvested.
Yeah.
And like, it just, to have the ability to have a deer live on you throughout the entire season is pretty neat. Yeah. Yep.
So I saw, I got a good lick of pictures of them, but like, you can see right there, it just goes straight up and out. So kind of cool that first morning ever. That's a wild feeling. First morning of the season, first morning ever hunting on that place, kill a nice one. So that was a really good feeling. I was thinking about
and I think there's something to say about that. Like, I mean, it's hard to be patient, but it was late October, your first time hunting that farm, and look at the results, Yeah. You saw 20 deer come off of it the night before. The next morning you go in and you kill a deer that was on your hit list.
See about 30 out in the field. I mean, there's a ton of deer down there, a ton.
I started listening to MSU, Mississippi University's deer podcast, and like, dude,
is that with Bronson Strickland?
Yeah,
that guy knows a lot of stuff about whitetails.
Like, you think you know what you're doing, and then you listen to those guys, and it's pretty impressive. And like, they did one specifically on the October lull, and they also have a really cool thing. I shared it on my own Facebook page actually, but like, where they have collared bucks, and they know exactly how old these deer are.
Oh, yeah.
They know everything about them, and like, they just showed that activity only increased throughout October. And it's a tough pill to swallow, and a lot of people are sometimes argumentative when they're like, oh no, the lull's here, and it's like, well, it's probably self-inflicted, Yeah. And I even have like people that I respect a lot that like butt heads with me about this, and it's like, dude, I mean, how many times have you hunted this year? Like 16. It's like, okay, well, you're 5 times as many as I've hunted, like, yep. I get it, but like, the data it's data's data, like it just is only going to amplify. And so, like, speaking of that, we did our like deer harvesting data. I mean, this is going to drop on Monday the 8th, which is my absolute favorite day to hunt. I think that the 11th, which is my second favorite day to hunt, is going to be absolutely killer. Like,
next weekend's going to be ball in.
I know that the weather's been frustrating, but dude, it's here, man. I mean, guys are having opportunities, are killing deer, like, and it's, once we get this stupid wind away from us, like, we're going to be sitting really good. I mean, even if it's slightly warmer this upcoming week, the 9th and 10th, and like Wednesday of this week's going to be a little bit warmer than we want, but still, man,
Tuesday of this week looks really good. Tomorrow.
Yeah. So
as you're listening to this,
keep hunting, keep tagging us in your stuff. The inner circle's banging right now. A lot of guys are talking about stuff, and I mean, we're in the thick of it. So hopefully the next Monday, the 21st, we'll have another harvest story for one of us, but we'll see if we can get that lucky.
I'm sure somebody will punch another tag before next
Gosh,
Monday,
you'd think.
I would think.
Time kills deer.
I would think. Time kills deer this time of the year. There's no doubt about that. I think persistence kills deer in the late season. Intelligence kills deer in October. And I think dirtbag,
determination, dedication,
time in the stand kills deer in at least the first couple weeks in November, in my opinion. But, that's pretty much it. It's a quick one. It's not really like a history-loaded story or anything like that, but it's pretty cool because I went down there. I don't know if I have a shed off this deer or not. I actually may have. And so there's been about 10 resident bucks that live down there. And I think this deer may be in my pile of sheds from last year. I'll check. So I went and I saw about 60 deer during the late season as I was in my closing period. The gentleman that owned this farm before me gave me permission to go out there and hunt. And I saw about 60 deer then during the last season. I was like, whoa, there's a lot of bucks, a lot of just really high deer density anyway. And so I was thinking like, oh man, I'm really excited coming into this season. So in February, I went down there and marked some trees, took some stands down and kept a few. And this stand actually, that's another interesting caveat to this one. This is the first ladder stand I've killed a deer out of since like my first or second deer. And so I went through the property. There was 8 permanent stand locations hung up. I kept 4 of them that were pretty solid, and this one I was like, okay, this is perfect setup for a a left-handed bow holder, which is, a righty like myself. I'm like, this is going to be perfect. I can see exactly how this can work out. And so that's where I went right down in there, and it was in a money spot.
The gentleman you purchased a farm from is a very good hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty accoladed. I know that, you were talking about the deer that he has killed off that piece, or just in general. And so, I mean.
Yeah, he's killed multiple booners, that's for sure. He killed a 200-incher last weekend, and then I think.
Giant.
Let's see. And so he gave me permission to hunt down there. And I was asking him after I went and hunted, as we were about a week away from closing would have been at that point in time. Because I went down there like late January, late into the season. And wasn't I had my bow with me for fun just in case. But for more intensive purposes, I was just doing a lot of deer watching. And I call him up. I'm like, holy crap, I just saw 60 deer, dude. And he's like, yeah, you'll have that down there. My biggest night has been like just over 80. And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of deer. And I was like, man, I feel bad that you're selling me this place. And he's like, I know, I had to, though, because he's got about 400 acres out of his backyard that he actually lives on. He's got a farm. He lives on a farmette, and he's got about a 400-acre piece that he has exclusive hunting rights to right behind his back door. And he's like, to be honest with you, I just haven't hunted very much up there for the last 3 or 4 years. So
wow,
you're going to have a great time. And I'm like, oh, okay.
What a problem to have.
What a problem to have, right? And so, yeah, he killed a slob out there. He's killed a couple above 180 out there I know of, and he just shot a 200 the other day. So he's a big deer killing son of a gun. A lot more patient than I am, that's for sure. So.
Well, dang.
Yeah.
So, and then this late season, I mean, you have some food, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
got a nice 2.5 acre food plot.
Is that corn or beans?
It's corn. Yep.
So
corn
high tonnage. I mean, because 60
it's looking really good too. It's just one of those things where like you and I have done this. You and I have planted and went through the rigmarole of planting our own corn before with like a little 2-row or a 4-row planter.
Yep.
It takes forever. It doesn't grow that well. So
you spend a ton of money on fertilizer.
Whenever it's like a corn and beans year, we just find the best way is to have your local farmer, whoever owns or leases around you, like, man, just have them leave you some and pay for it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the best way to do it. And that's what he did. So I have actually 2 acres of cash rentable ground on this piece of 60 acres. And I just kind of horse traded those 2 acres for another 2 acres that are right near the blind in a location that I wanted them to be. And so, yeah, so that's ready, and that'll be getting knocked down here in about a week, along with some of our corn, like the remainder of it for gun season. So looking forward to doing that and hanging up some more cell cameras around that area to see what kind of comes in there and takes a nibble on that during the evening and the nighttime. So should be pretty good. Should be a pretty good rest of the season. But it's been a couple of years. Well, I guess you and I were talking about it the other day. I think we've had, over the last 8 Octobers, we've either had an opportunity or we have an encounter with a deer we want to shoot. And so this is the first year in 3 years that I've killed a buck in October. So that was a good feeling to whack one in October again and put one on the ground, actually, not just like encounter them. So yeah, a lot of good things that happen, and I'm looking forward to even improving that place even more this summer and getting some trails running through there, getting some more saplings planted in terms of some thermal cover, like some pine trees and some cedars and things like that. And I'm going to get some dogwood sprigs and start stabbing those on one of my hillsides to get a little diversity pocket going. So really looking forward to like even the stuff that I'm going to do continuing down in the future on that piece.
It's only going to get better.
Yep, that's right.
Well, I guess we'll come at you with the next one, and hopefully it's another harvest report. If not, we got a couple locked in stock that are going to be good. If you're hunting this week, good luck, and until next time, don't waste it.